The list of great characters in television is one that's actually pretty big. From Walter White and Thomas Shelby, to John Dutton and Jack Reacher, to Aaron Yeager and Prince Zuko. Hell, let's even throw Uncle Iroh in the mix while we're at it. Point is, there's a lot of celebrated characters in the history of television. But there's one that I believe doesn't get enough attention. Ragnar Lothbrok is one of, if not the actual greatest character in the history of television. He is a character that deals and juggles with so many conflicts, not just with external conflicts, but internal ones as well. He struggles with the pain of fighting and saving his brother on more than one occasion, along with battling against the idea of religion and fighting against the natural force of death. Ragnar Lothbrok is an exceptionally great character, with flaws and all, that by the end of his life, you can take a look back and you'll be able to truly see how great Ragnar Lothbrok really was. He's a reason the Viking show is even worth watching. Honestly, you could just watch until season 4, episode 15, and it would be worth it. But I doubt that if you are able to watch to that point, that you'll stop watching. Mostly because, although shocking, the show still carries well without Ragnar. But without Ragnar, this show would be nothing. This show is really great, and if you haven't watched it before, I highly recommend that you watch it after this video, because it is just that good. So in today's video, I want to go over 5 reasons why Ragnar Lothbrok is the greatest protagonist to ever exist. Reason number 1. He is a teacher of masculinity. In today's world, there are tons of what I would call teachers of masculinity. After the viral eruption of Andrew Tate,
electric, my little plug. Ooh, let me get my little plug and plug it into my Tesla. Maybe I can get an erection one day.
There's suddenly been a surge of a lot of high-value men. Now, I'm not one to judge anyone's specific value they have for themselves, but it does seem that a lot of people don't really have a good grasp as to what they contribute to the world. Instead of talking about being a great man, Ragnar Lothbrok shows us. There's a ton of lessons about masculinity that we can learn from. Of course, the battle scene against his brother, the way the show shows us his composure in tough situations, there's the siege of Paris and how to deal with failure. Of course, those are just some of the many few instances of Ragnar being a teacher of masculinity. There are some few exceptions of Ragnar not really being a man. Not a good man anyway. There's the instance of him cheating on his wife Lagertha while he was away. There's that one moment in season 1 when Ragnar offers Athelstan to sleep with his wife, but I think that was just Athelstan fantasizing about that. I don't think Ragnar actually wanted to share his wife with another man. There's the one instance after the loss of Paris where Ragnar goes into the mountains and abandons his children in their crucial developing years. So, film nerd, what are you trying to say? Because a lot of it just sounds like this video should be called 5 Reasons Why Ragnar is a Bad Husband and Father. One of the best lessons that Ragnar teaches us is near the end of his life. After all is said and done, Ragnar knows that the end is near. He knows what he did was wrong. He's taking responsibility and holding himself accountable for all the mistakes he's made. This is best represented in his final episodes when he's talking to his second wife, Aslog. He tells her that he's extremely grateful that even when she was furious with him at times, she never told their sons to turn against him, never poisoned their minds. I love this moment because even though love is not what brought them together, the love she had for their sons kept them together. She had no obligation to make sure her sons didn't hate their father, and this scene is extremely underrated. Another example comes from his final episodes when he talks to Lagertha, the only woman he truly loved. He tells her he admits that he made a mistake cheating on her the way he did, because Lagertha still loved Ragnar, even when he was cheating on her. If you remember in season 1, Lagertha even tries to compromise with him, but the pain was too great for her, so she left him. One could look at this scene and say that he's just doing this to manipulate her and make her feel like he's actually sorry, but here's the thing. I can pretty much 100% guarantee that he means what he's saying. He knows that he's going to die soon, and this is the last time that he's ever going to see them again. He knows that he won't see them again in Valhalla or heaven, so he's doing the right thing with the time that he has left. Almost reminds me of another one of my favorite characters in fiction. And this scene, like the last one, is another phenomenal set point within the show, because it shows us that this is how a man is supposed to act when he realizes that he's made a mistake. He takes ownership and responsibility of his actions and holds himself completely accountable. And to leave off, we get the best part in the entire scene. Both Lagertha and Ragnar share a final kiss, and Ragnar leaves knowing he will never see her again. Reason number 2. He is a great king. The irony of Ragnar being such a great king is that it was never his intention to begin with. When the series begins, Ragnar is just a man who did go to war and knows how to fight, but at the end of the day, He was just a farmer. The only real true ambition he ever had was sailing west to see if anything was out there. He never wanted to be the Jarl of Kattegat or King of Denmark. This is shown directly in Season 4 when Ragnar returns to Kattegat after spending years away from everybody. All while being the active king in command, he asks the people of Kattegat who wants to be king in a memorable fashion.
Who wants to be king?
Telling them that they all know how this works. In order to become king, someone must slay him. But no one wants to do that because they don't want those kind of responsibilities. And neither did Ragnar. But it's this curiosity that snowballs into this destiny that Ragnar is almost at times feels like he's forced to fulfill. I'm also 90% sure this was Ragnar's way of trying to get himself killed to avoid his destiny, but his time as king is legendary. And if you don't believe me, just look at the track record. He made Kattegat that side of the world's trading hub. He even was able to establish farming land for the Vikings in England. But what I trust as his greatest triumph is the Siege of Paris. Even though it wasn't perfect and didn't go 100% according to plan, he did end up getting inside the city, using the art of war. In a genius plan, Ragnar converts to Christianity. He tricks France into believing that he is a Christian. Then, in an even smarter, more brilliant move, he fakes his death, echoing earlier when the seer tells Ragnar that Siege of Paris will be won by the dead. Then he has someone from the sleuth ask the higher-ups to give him a Christian funeral. France already believes that he is a Christian, being baptized and whatnot, so they grant him his dying wish. And we get the turning point that we are all waiting for. Ragnar hops out of the Christian casket and starts to fill his little basket with Frankian goodies. This whole process is quite brilliant, and it's really satisfying to watch it as a viewer because before this, we see Ragnar and the Vikings fail time and time again, and after each time, it starts to get a little frustrating. But because Ragnar knows the art of war, he uses Frankia's naivety to his advantage. This is just a snippet of why he's such a great king. Reason number 3, it's Travis Fimmel. If you have watched Vikings in its entirety, then you already know that there is no shortage of 10 out of 10 performances, and the actor who plays Ragnar Lothbrok is no exception. You can tell that he understands this character almost better than the writers who wrote him. Travis Fimmel has one of those personalities that I would call, let's just say, attractive. Pause. From the interviews and radio shows that I have seen him on, he seems like one of those fellas you could crack open a cold one with and just talk about whatever. He's one of those bright personalities that's just so chill. Now for me, I am of the mind that I can separate the artist from the art, but when I like the artist, for me, the value of that art goes up a considerable amount. It makes those grandiose scenes even better. He's able to make Ragnar Lothbrok a character much more than just a Viking. Without Travis Fimmel, I'm not sure that Ragnar would have been elevated nearly to the level that he is regarded as today. He may not be the greatest actor of all time, but he is definitely the greatest actor to ever play Ragnar Lothbrok. Reason number 4, he's a great friend to Athelstan. Now, the reason why Ragnar's relationship with Athelstan makes Ragnar so great is because it allows us to see his internal and external changes throughout. I mentioned this in one of my recent videos on the death of the love interest and how modern movies suffer without one. Well, in Vikings, Ragnar only really has one romantic love interest, and that's Lagertha. But she's not a love interest throughout the entire show. She is for me, but that's besides the point. But Ragnar does have Athelstan, and their relationship is borderline romantic. I ain't gonna lie, it gets kind of weird sometimes. But despite that, Ragnar's relationship with Athelstan is actually one of the many highlights of the series. From the beginning, when Ragnar first arrives in England, the first real interaction he has with anybody is Athelstan. We see Ragnar spare him, and already it makes us perceive Ragnar as a character differently. Ragnar is intrigued as to why Athelstan chose to save the Gospel of St. John and none of the other riches that the monastery held, i.e. the gold and the jewelry. I do believe that this is the first time that Ragnar comes into question about the gods. Not because he thinks the gods are wrong, but because of how strong Athelstan is in his stance with Christ. Throughout Ragnar's time on the show, he engages in spiritual warfare. And I won't get into that too much because that will be in the next reason. But Athelstan shows us another side to Ragnar that we would have never seen if it weren't for him. Throughout Vikings, in its entirety, it's made clear to us how much Athelstan affects Ragnar. A great example is when Ragnar is burying him after Floki murders Athelstan out of jealousy. Out of this, Ragnar makes Floki suffer in a pretty ruthless way, showing us how much that affected him emotionally. But spiritually, this is probably my favorite scene that Travis Fimmel does in the entire show. And I'd go as far to say that it's a better performance than the death speech. He admits that Athelstan was fearless, even though he himself thought he was weak and conflicted. But Ragnar saw him as brave because he dared to question. He talks Christianity and the gods, and how he and Athelstan will never see each other again. Ragnar's final episodes are great, and all the way up to his death is phenomenal. But it's at this moment right here where Ragnar fully lets go of the gods and Christianity as a whole and completely rejects them both. I absolutely love this monologue. Travis Fimmel does an amazing job, and I think this scene right here shows us truly how important Athelstan was to Ragnar. Reason number 5. He has one glorious death. Of course, this wouldn't be a true vid about Ragnar Lothbrok's greatness if I didn't talk about his glorious exit. The fact that this scene is almost 7 years old seems crazy to me. This scene is great, but what makes it even better is everything leading up to this moment. From the moment that Ragnar comes from off the mountain and into Kattegat and asks who wants to be king, all the way to him being brought into captivity by the Saxons. You could actually go as far back as when Ragnar asks the seer when he is going to die earlier in season 4. If you remember, the seer told Ragnar that he was fated to die the day the blind man saw him. The buildup is executed perfectly. You know it's coming, but what you don't know is when. When Ragnar comes from off the mountain, you think maybe someone will kill him so that they can become king. Throughout these 5 episodes, the show makes us almost anticipate Ragnar dying. Ragnar himself knows that he is going to die soon. He tries deleting himself on multiple occasions, all in an effort to prove the gods wrong. Because remember that Ragnar is fated to die the day the blind man sees him. That's how Ragnar ends up back in Wessex. Him and Ivar travel all the way to England just so Ragnar can be killed by the Saxons. But as we later find out, this was an attempt to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Ragnar still feels guilty for never making King Ecbert pay for what he did to the Norse that settled farmlands in England. A little reminder that Ecbert massacred all the Vikings that were on peaceful terms. So he didn't kill any warriors or threats. He killed innocent farmers and their families. I mean, Aethelwulf did carry it out, but Ecbert ordered him to do it. Ragnar never sent a counterattack or even got revenge on Ecbert for doing that. So Ragnar goes and dies by Saxons, which would lead his sons to exact revenge on the death of their father. And that would be Ragnar's true revenge on King Ecbert. And going in this way, Ragnar at the time would be dying on his own terms, not on the gods'. So when Ragnar is captured, Ecbert is deceived by him, and he admits that he can't kill him because of the amount of respect that he has for Ragnar. So he tells him to let King Aelle kill him, but Ragnar tells Ivar to tell his brothers that it was actually Ecbert, so that when they do come back, they will be headhunting for Ecbert. But Ecbert doesn't know this. Ragnar is soon shipped over to Aelle's, and Ragnar, trying to make conversation, asks the driver when they will arrive, and he tells him tomorrow. The driver in question turns around and says that he doesn't know the way because he's blind, but he tells Ragnar not to worry because he can see him. We then get this grandeur dialogue between the seer and Ragnar. Ragnar tells him that he guided his own fate, that he fashioned the course of his life and his death. The seer admits that he may have been wrong. If you forgot, Ragnar was fated to die the day the blind man saw him, but he doesn't die until the next day when he reaches King Aelle's. But even when he reaches Aelle's, he doesn't die for at least a couple more days. And after all is said and done, moments before his death, Ragnar delivers one last magnificent speech.
My death comes without apology, and I welcome the Valkyries to summon me home.
The cage opens and Ragnar falls into a pit full of snakes. But the last thing that Ragnar sees is a robed, hidden King Ecbert, who also sees him. King Ecbert is the blind man who didn't see Ragnar's last move against him. So, the seer was right in his prophecy. Ragnar did die the day the blind man saw him. When I first saw that, my mind was blown. I was blown away. I'm gonna be honest, I was blown away. Ragnar's death was elevated so much more for me after I found that out. Ragnar's death is glorious, and I think it's probably the best and most well-executed death in television history. Ragnar Lothbrok is one of the greatest characters, not only in TV, but in fiction to ever exist. He's ruthless, hates religion, and is full of lust and of wrath. He's a man of many mistakes and many failures, but in that he does his best to be the best friend and best husband and best father he can be. He's honest, and he's not afraid to be fearless and search for the answers to questions he wants answered. He's among the GOATs of TV protagonists, and for me, personally, he's on the Mount Rushmore. Alright guys, that's all I have for you for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it, and without further ado, I want you to follow God. I want you to keep going in this game of life, keep pushing, and without further ado, peace!